1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3.
What's up, y'all?
Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. This has been, we started a new semester a couple weeks ago, I guess. They've finally got the school year arranged, so it breaks at Christmas. So we do exams before Christmas and then start a new thing afterwards, which is much better for everybody, even though it means we start, in the middle of August instead of the end of August. But it's been good, though.
Yeah, I am. Like I was telling you, I am freezing my what off down here this winter in the basement. So I've been doing this podcast thing, I guess. So I guess this March will make 5 years
Wow.
that I've been doing podcasts.
Yeah, because it was pandemic. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been cold in Georgia during the winter the entirety of that time
Right.
because, like, the previous house that I lived in had like a full door and window set and was connected to a garage by another door. So I had 2 full doors
Hmm.
and a whole window set. And I did the pod literally 5 feet from both of those doors to my left and to the
Right.
west of me and to the north of me, and was never cold when I put my heater down.
Right.
And this is the biggest basement that I've ever lived in.
Hmm.
But there are only 2 fucking windows and it is freezing.
Yeah, you're not getting that sunshine too. I mean, you're not.
And
It's
it's
not
and it's
doing the
not like
greenhouse
and it's
effect.
not like it's like layers of brick
Right.
basement
I can
here.
see behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very well put together brick with no holes or like cracks or like nothing. And so yeah, the fact that I'm cold down here, like I come down here and I have to like cut this heater on like 30 minutes before I come down here just to
Yeah.
like make it manageable. And keep in mind there is a heating duct right here,
Yeah.
like literally 3 feet away.
I
And
have a. I'm in my space. I have a heater blowing on my feet. Like there's a. I don't know why they would put a heating vent in the closet, but like there is one, so it's blowing on me. So it's pleasant.
I don't know.
But
That's good.
also
That's good. That's good old town country living when they got the little closet. Like you can go to sleep up in that thing if you want to.
good if I needed to. Yep. I'd clear some of the stuff out and we could put another bed in here if we had to. But
Yeah.
um, for but no, it's nice, man. Like yeah, no, this is the first time I can remember in the last few years where it's been multiple days of not getting above freezing during the day, like in a row. That hasn't happened in a long time here. I can't remember it happening since I lived in Nashville. Really, I mean, there've been a day or two, and there's been a day or two in the last couple of years that have been like down in the teens or single digits, like one morning. But like it's not been like this at all.
No, it's been the last 2 weeks specifically have been like multiple days where it's been like 17 degrees but feels like 8 degrees, 23 degrees but feels like 15 degrees. It's
Yeah.
been below freezing. Like cold is. Ooh.
I have to get up at 6 and take kids to school and stuff like that. So I'm out in all of that, and
Thank
hauling
God.
them out.
Thank God that is over for me right now. Thank God.
Yeah, that was we drive by. I mean, you know McAdenville,
Yeah.
because you grew up in Charlotte too. We drive through there on the way to daycare for my youngest, and there's a big, not a lake, but kind of a pondy lake kind of thing that you have to drive through the middle of town, and it's had ice over the top of it, which doesn't ever happen.
I'm not. My daughter's about to be 18 next month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even opposed to having kids again. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But because I feel young. Like, I feel like I'm not. But I will tell you this. I'm enjoying right now getting up at 7 a.m. and not doing a damn thing for anybody other than myself. I am enjoying it. It's good to have this moment in time right now.
It is good to have it sometimes, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's good. But I mean, even if I didn't have them, I'm still a teacher. I still have to get up then anyway, so it doesn't really make that much difference. But
I get it.
But it's my you know this, my little ones are 6 and 3. So it's I mean, we're going through all of the 3-year-old stuff, all the 6-year-old losing teeth stuff, all that kind of normal, all
Yeah.
that. But
Such a long haul.
yeah, it is. It's great though. I'm having a great time.
I
Most
know
of the
you
time.
are.
Yeah.
It's a joy, man. I tell people, like,
But it's full.
it's full raising my daughter, and even, like, having, like, doing stuff with my niece over the years, and her being close, and, like, being a part of their life the way I have. It's been my life's greatest joy. It really has. It's
Yeah.
been the best. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm glad that it happened, and I'm thankful, and looking forward to what's next for them, because they're very bright and beautiful young
Yeah.
women.
They're pretty cool kids, both of them.
Yeah. So
My teenager is still asleep as far as I know. So or was when I came in here.
see, this is what I mean. Like, mine is already at work. Like, she actually, like, me and her were just talking this morning. That's what I mean. Is like, oh, I got up this morning just kind of rap with her. She's the one that had to be at work at 9 today. I'm the one on the late shift today. But you know, we talk about a lot of different tropes on this show, and I really love that you have enjoyed this Guru JAZZMATAZZ.
Dude, that's fucking cool as hell, man. It's great. It's great. Yeah.
So one of the things that's cool about it that people don't know is that this is getting recorded in D&D Studios. Okay.
Okay.
D&D Studios is where his group partner DJ Premier records out of too, and so they are making material at the same time in the same studio, but not being a part of each other's thing. And so this is also when DJ Premier becomes a legend as a producer. But it got recorded in the same studios, which is D&D Studios. And so Guru is bringing live musicians into, for the
Is
most
this in
part,
New York?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
It's in Brooklyn. It's in Brooklyn.
That's what I thought. That was my impression.
Manhattan.
Even if I knew nothing about him or anybody, or like I can hear the New York and just the style of stuff.
Yeah, Guru is actually originally from Boston.
Okay.
His father was actually an attorney and a judge. Mother was like a librarian and a teacher, but like a high like ran like the largest library in Boston or something like that. So he comes from a very affluent upbringing, and he himself actually has a college degree from Morehouse here in Atlanta.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So Guru is very very educated. Yeah, he's from Roxbury.
Okay.
Right outside of Boston. Roxbury and Dorchester are the predominant areas where you will find Black people in the Boston area. So he is from that area, and is from an affluent family in that area. But kind of the rap shit resides in Brooklyn with him, though, because he moved to Brooklyn, I believe, after leaving Morehouse to pursue his music career, which is where he linked up with a guy named DJ Premier, who was from Houston. So even though Gangstar is known as your classic East Coast boom bap hip hop group, neither one of the guys are even from New York.
Yeah. Well, they met in New York. That's a fascinating story.
Because you associate DJ Premier with East Coast hip hop sound wise, and Gangstar is one of those archetypal groups that define like hip hop East Coast culture, but that's because they both resided in Brooklyn, but neither one of them are from New York. But I was bringing up Guru's background and affluence because, well, JAZZMATAZZ is where that upbringing kind of shows itself. No matter how hard you try, you do revert back to a lot of the nuances of how you were raised.
Yeah, it always comes back. We've talked on the show before about how we met on newspaper staff writing music reviews, and we're doing. That's what we're doing. 25? I don't want to think about how many years later. Many years later.
June 3rd will
make
26 years, sir.
Yeah. Let's not do that. But yeah, it is. I'm sorry I interrupted. Carry on.
So here's why You know me, I love the part about it, the part of the breakdown where you get the pieces together, like the actual
Yeah.
puzzle together. And so when I hear something like Jazzmatazz now, see, as a young man, it's like, oh, that's really cool. That's something different. There's
Mhm.
some dope records. Not my thing. Always loved the fact that Guru was very positive, which is something that we'll get to in a moment. But when I
Is it
look back,
like it was more cool that he did it than it was like the actual music, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. At the time, the young man in me
Yeah.
is like more cool that he did it than me actually going and listening to it on a
Right.
regular basis. But what the grown up version of me will tell you is that, oh, well, I'm pretty certain if he grew up in that affluent household, that dad being a lawyer and a judge and mom being a librarian and teacher, probably heard a lot of jazz growing up.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
You know, you see how it
Yeah.
starts coming together. And
Mhm.
so he's probably hearing all these other hip hop groups like A Tribe Called Quest.
I was about to say Tribe is my immediate thought when I heard this. I was
Of
like, this
course,
sounds like a Tribe
of course,
record,
of
more or
course,
less.
of course. It's
Yeah.
where everybody goes when they think of jazz
Yeah.
and hip hop.
Yeah.
Which and Q-Tip is, you know, I wouldn't say mostly responsible, but I would say he's at the forefront of that.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would tell you is that, well, I think Guru and probably his upbringing, instead of him doing it in the hip hop format that Q-Tip did it, he
Mhm.
actually decided to flip it and do it in the actual real live jazz format.
Right.
So this is actually very much the roots before the roots, or
Yeah.
right around
Yeah.
the time the roots are becoming the roots. You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those two groups, Tribe and Roots, are one of the reasons I love this so much. I mean, which is, I assume, why you recommended it me to
Yeah.
listen to it to start with,
Yeah,
right?
because I know you're a big Roots and Tribe fan. Of course, you like Tribe, Roots, De La. Of course, you're gonna love Guru over jazz beats. Yeah,
And I love all, not all live music, but like live in studio music. Like I love that kind of feel to
hmm
things too.
it's different. It's
Yeah.
different when you hear it. It's different when you hear it.
In all genres too, not just hip hop. Like, and
Yeah,
like I love
yeah.
just the
Period.
live, the improvisation stuff.
hmm It's beautiful. I mean, he has Roy Ayers on here.
And Branford Marsalis. I mean, he's got all kind. He's got some heavy hitters on
Yeah.
here.
No, he. You know this. I mean, this is. I mean, still to this day, I'm not like. I'm. I enjoy it much more as an older man. I'm just gonna be totally honest.
I do. I did not know about this in 1990, whatever it was,
3.
3
hmm
when this came out, right? But I would imagine that my impression would have been the same as yours. Would be like, oh, this is kind of cool that he did it, but not really my thing. And I really appreciate it. Like I've listened to this, not for the show now, but like I listened to it a few times just to get kind of take notes or whatever. But I've also like just put it on now and listen to it just because I
Yeah.
like it, not because I'm preparing for something.
And there's some very and don't get it twisted. There's some very dope stuff on there. Like the
Mhm.
last two records. The last two records are impressive.
Yeah, the French one, yeah, that's
Yeah,
killer, man.
the Le Bon Le Mans, where you're going
Yeah.
back and forth with the French. I mean, that's think about it. That's 1993.
Mhm.
That is so far ahead of the curve. That
That
is
you barely start seeing that now, like,
like I'm about to say. I really didn't start seeing that on a national level probably till about 10 years ago.
mhm,
He's doing this in 93, so he's about 20, 25
yeah,
years ahead. That's what I mean. So he did some things on this album. I still, you know, there still are some points and some moments where I don't feel like the fusion or the blend goes as well.
yeah,
But I think that is also because my hip hop mind is trained to think of the hip hop jazz fusion immediately go to Tribe in the low end
right.
tier. And so with that being the barometer, it's like, well,
That's a really, really high bar. Like, it's a
right,
really high bar.
right. And
Yeah,
so you have to scale back. I have to scale back my own expectations in my mind
mhm,
and understand that it's like, oh well, that's like the zenith of what you can do with it,
yeah,
and this is, you know, above the fray in a very good effort. And so I
mhm,
think while most people were probably giving it like about a 3 out of 5 when it came out, I think time has revealed it's probably closer to a 4.
yeah.
But
That's kinda where I would put it too.
but 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 and this is the thing that I want to talk about really and see what your thoughts are about this.
Mm,
You have somebody like Guru. Now think about the background that I just described to you. You know, like his upbringing.
mhm,
Um, think about the positive message that you hear him implore just on the guru stuff that you're familiar with. Because I think you're familiar with Moment of Truth by Gangstar now, correct?
Yeah.
And you're familiar with this project now, right?
Yeah. But
surprise.
This is a quick sidebar. I want to stick this in here because I don't want to come on here like an expert. I didn't know Guru was Gangstar. Like, I knew Guru's name and I knew Gangstar's name, but I didn't know he and Premier. Like, I didn't know that was. I didn't know those two things went together. That's like somebody knowing Robert Plant's name and knowing Jimmy Page's name, but not knowing they were in a band together. And is that Led Zeppelin? Like, that's
right.
I didn't know that those things connected. I was like, so when I found that out, I'd already listened to it 2 or 3 times by that point, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. So
right.
One of the many things this show has done for me is it's helping me to make connections like that, where I can see how how people function as part of groups and individually, and how they fit in the ecosystem of a genre.
Right. Sorry, I had to put the heater literally right next to me.
Yeah.
No, that is one of the beautiful things about this show, because it's like, well, I know things like that when you're making the Robert Plant analogy. Well, I know things like that I didn't know now too.
Right.
Like, like the Stevie Nicks being part of Fleetwood Mac and how that came to be. Like, oh no, she wasn't originally part of Fleetwood Mac. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that there was a Fleetwood Mac.
Lindsay brought her on. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was a Fleetwood Mac before Stevie. You get what I'm saying? So it's like there's stuff like that that's been revealing to me as well, which is part of one of the myriad of reasons that we do this show, honestly. But I want to just continue to get back to what my overall theme and point about Guru is that, so you have the affluent background, esteemed father, esteemed mother, college graduate from arguably the most prestigious historically Black college in this nation, thriving musical career, very educated, very positive in his rhymes. And most people don't know his story, but you know how many times...
I didn't know his story.
Hold on, but listen, you know how many times 50 got shot, and you know where 50's from. You get what I'm saying? It's like all the horror stories.
He tells those stories,
Yeah, all the horror stories. Oh no, like the mass public knows the hip hop horror stories very well, like the tragedies turned into triumph. But that's why I bring up 50, because it's tragedy.
America loves a rags to riches story. Like,
tragedy to triumph. Like, man, this guy got shot 9 times, came out, voice sounded different, actually made him sound better. He actually got better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all the things with it, got a big deal, had one of the biggest selling rap albums of all time. I think he's the first Black guy to sell 10 million rap albums. But with all of that, well, we don't identify and talk about the gurus that exist, and that's where the balance sometimes in hip hop does get lost. It's like, well, why don't you know Guru's story the way that you know 50's? And that goes to the thing. It's like, well, that negativity and those negative things, I mean, you can call it rags to riches, but it's really the rags part that draws people's attention more than it is the rich.
Well, yeah, and people want to see, like, people who don't have the best upbringings want to know that it's possible also for them to be that, or like that's a thing that can happen, for them too. It helps them with their own self-belief, hypothetically, anyway.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But this is what I mean. Well, there's nothing wrong with being Theo Huxtable from the Cosbys either. We all watched that shit. It was the #1 show in America for the majority of the time that it was on the air. For about 6 or 7 years, it was #1. Not in Black America, in America. So it's not like America can't be
Everybody was watching that show, yes.
So, but I bring that up to say, well, it's not like America as a whole can't be receptive to these positive Black tropes and archetypes. It just appears not so in the hip-hop sphere. What do you think about that?
I don't be like sex sells, but like, and it bleeds, it leads. I mean, those things, like, no, really though, like that's why it's, and you see that, huh?
If it bleeds, it leads. I haven't heard that in a long time.
I know I haven't either, but like that's just what occurs to me. Like it's I don't think it's exclusive to hip hop, but I think you see it in hip hop a lot. Like that, And expand it a little bit. I think you see it in music a lot. I think you see that's how you sell records, how you get streams, how you get whatever. Now, you see, I don't want to take a left turn here, but most of the big artists in the world are doing one of those two things. I think Taylor Swift is probably an exception to that, but most of them, because she's doing like the down home, like girl next door thing a little bit. I mean, she does the sex sells too, but like, are you giving me side eye about this? I don't want to talk about Taylor Swift in the Guru episode particularly, but like, you asked me a question, I'm processing it out loud in real time. So, you're asking me if I think that, or what I think about the fact that violence and having a rags to riches kind of a harder upbringing sells in hip hop music specifically.
Yeah. Because even with Gangstar, they only went gold twice, and it was Moment of Truth and Full Clip, which was their greatest hits.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's true. Obviously, I think that's what happens.
Tribe didn't sell a lot of records. Nobody cared, but they weren't like out here like going double, triple platinum.
Right.
Like Dr. Dre, like the Chronic may have sold, like Doggy Style might have sold more than Tribe's first 3 albums combined. Not joking. Yeah, it's a very sincere possibility that happened.
I think a lot of music sales and hooks into music come from teenagers and young adults. And I think that teenagers, as a general rule, are attracted to things that are a little bit dangerous, a little bit off center, a little bit wilder than perhaps people who are older. And so you see that in the punk movement, you see it in early rock and roll movement, you see it in all of these places, and you see it in hip-hop
so you're saying it's more of it's more of an ageism thing in the colloquialism of our culture than it is a race or music genre thing. Is that what you're saying? It's more just a rebellious nature.
Again, this is not something that I've thought about at all. This is something that I'm like shooting off the top of my head here, but I think it's both. I do. I do think that there is absolutely an element of race in it too. I do think that because a lot of the people respectfully doing the selling are conditioned to see Black America in a particular way, right? And so they're like lining up. This is the Doggy Styles and the Chronics of the world. They're lining up what the expectations are with the actual music. But you have that, but you also have the fact that people are narrating their own lives essentially too, right? Like, so it's not, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but yeah, those are my reflexive thoughts anyway.
Okay, so where do you put this work by Guru in relationship to a Do You Want More by the Roots, or a People's Instinctive by Tribe Called Quest? Because when I hear this album and specifically, I hear what the Roots are about to start sounding like. Like they're the ones that kind of put that fusion that he started together. And there's a volume 2 of this and a volume 3 and 4. I don't know.
I've listened to some of the volume 2 yet. I've not like taken notes. I've only listened to it once, but
I want because I was about to say I don't know if you've listened to volume 2 yet, but I'd like to actually do one on volume 2 as well.
Yeah, and talk about the differences between the two. I wanted to dig in. Like when I was listening to volume 2 for the first time, I didn't even know this was the guy from Gangstar. Like I didn't. So it's literally my first note. I'm gonna come back to your question too, but like literally my first note on this page right here is, who was Guru before this? You can't pull this level of jazz musician to play with you if you're some rando, right? Like you can't be just this can't be like your first album and nobody knows you and you say get Branford Marsalis to come play on your album. That's just not a thing that's going to happen.
And understand that, I mean, Guru originally founded Gangstar in 1987.
Yeah, and
so
that was one of my notes too. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when people are looking at him, and this is something that's important about him as well. Well, that's Rakim, Kane, KRS, Slick Rick, Public Enemy, NWA, LL Cool J.
Yeah.
He's coming from that era, and so you have to understand when he is starting to make his best works, which is starting with this, because this is his first quote unquote solo album.
Right.
This Volume 2, and then In the Moment of Truth. Oh, like as far as MCing goes, this is his finest stuff. Like some of his best MCing is on the JAZZMATAZZ projects, actually, which is ironic because he had DJ Premier, who, by some people's account, is the greatest hip hop producer ever.
Right.
So he did actually some of his best work without the greatest hip hop producer ever. As far as his bars go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his best bar work is still Moment of Truth to me. Like it's not even conversational, but he was doing solid stuff, and he was kind of like he survived an era a lot of those guys didn't survive. Like Moment of Truth is coming out 11 years after Gangstar is founded. Most of those guys that I just mentioned, like their career, they were looked at as vets who were coming back. He had never really left.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He wasn't who they were early on, but he, it's one of those. It's one of those things about being consistent. You know what I'm saying? He was never quote unquote top 5.
Right.
But he was always dope, and he was always there, and he was consistently there, And so in 1998, when you look at what he did with Moment of Truth, it's like, well, he made a better product than a Rakim or a KRS-One or could have made around that time. I mean, now he had DJ Premier, but the reality of the matter is that, those guys had access to DJ Premier.
Yeah.
DJ Premier is on KRS-One's quote unquote first debut album, Return of the Boom Bap. Yeah. Primo's been around for a minute. A lot of this stuff, like KRS-One's Return of the Boom Bap, that's done in D&D Studios while Guru's doing JAZZMATAZZ. Nas, the records from Illmatic that Premier did, D&D Studios.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Unbelievable by Big on Ready to Die in 1994, D&D Studios. All those records got made in there. New York State of Mind, Unbelievable. Represent Memory Lane. I forget which. I think the record that Premier did on KRS's album is "I'm a Blunt Getting Smoked." That got recorded in D&D. Kicking the Door by Big, 10 Crack Commandments. I can go on and on, man. Most of that shit got recorded in D&D.
It would be interesting to do an episode on D&D, just on a studio like that.
Oh yeah, you should. Like when Big is talking on Kicking the Door, when he's talking to people, some of it was about a couple of run-ins he had with a couple of other crews coming in and out of D&D Studios because everybody was coming in and out trying to.
Because everybody was there, yeah.
Yeah, because Premier was doing stuff for everybody in D&D. J. Rue the Damager, OC, Gangstar, Nas, KRS-One, Big, Rakim. You name it, he was doing work for him. Group Home. He's doing work for everybody. It's ridiculous. He's cranking stuff out. And in another room, Guru's bringing in live jazz music.
I was going to say, bringing in the best jazz musicians of the era, or some of the greatest active ones at that point, anyway.
I mean, when you got Branford Marsalis and Roy Ayers, it's like, yeah, you do have.
Those are heavy hitters. I was like, because I didn't know anything about any of this. I mean, other than seeing like the cover of the album, and before I listened to it, seeing the cover of it, and knowing both from what you said and from what the cover of the album says, that's a jazz hip hop fusion. Like, I got that part, but so you listen and he starts name checking all the people that are on here, and I was like, oh,
you got musicians.
Oh, these are like serious musicians. These are not just like, let me say it like this. I don't want to suggest that hip hop producers and stuff like that, or come off like I'm saying that, are not serious musicians. They are. these are musicians that people know outside of the hip hop sphere, I guess is what I mean. Like that
How
are
about this?
famous independent of this.
In the modern day era, in order to really make a viable living as a jazz musician,
Yeah.
you have to be great.
Yeah. Really, really, really talented.
Great. So everybody that's on that sheet,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they are the best at what they do. Pretty much, he did go get the best for his era.
Yeah, which is why I wrote that first note. Like, I was like, "Who is this guy?" Like, I feel like I'd known his name, but like I didn't know who he was past that. I was like, you can't get this list of people to come play on your album if you're just some rando starting out. So, yeah, obviously he was coming from somewhere, and that makes a lot of sense.
And here's the thing. And here's the thing with the jazz musician. Jazz musicians are progressive thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And forward thinkers, and so all these ladies and gentlemen probably love the idea of the progressive nature and thought of this, even if they weren't acquainted with Guru and Gangstar. They probably just thought it was musically a dope ass idea.
It's a great idea, yeah.
Like, because jazz musicians love to play. They like, you want to do what?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I like that.
Actually, this is another.
They love to play.
Yeah, they do, and I mean, Branford Marsalis was playing with the Grateful Dead live at this point too, like in the early 90s. Like he was sitting in playing on stage with them. There's a set of shows they played at Madison Square Garden that he's playing on with them. So he was playing with everybody. Like, and I mean, it makes sense for the Grateful Dead too, because that's very improvisational as well. It fits with his motif. But yeah, like the rhyme style coming back around, the rhyme style you hear, that's one of my notes I wrote too, that you hear on this is very, my brain says late 80s. Like it's that kind of, he's pulling from, like you said, the Rakims and the KRSs and the tribes and those kind of styles, which is interesting because, and we touched on this in a previous conversation too, that the album JAZZMATAZZ kind of got buried because it came out between Chronic and Doggy Style and Enter the Wu-Tang. Like those came out on either side of that. So, which are stylistically different than this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I can see how it got buried in a way
that was what the new hip hop sounded like. He's making the old hip hop, quote unquote.
And it's great. I love listening to it, but it's not the hot stuff or the
and like, just in fairness, song, it's not as good as the Chronic, Doggy Style, or Enter the Wu-Tang.
It's not. I mean, I don't want to say that, but like it's
not.
But it's also, I don't say it's not trying to be as good, but it's not trying to be that. It's not trying to be. It's not in the same lane.
That's not the void he's trying to fill. Absolutely not. Yeah. He is. He is. You know what? He is a precursor to, like. He is very much. You can tell that he is very much Chuck D and KRS-One inspired.
Yeah. That's what I heard too. Yeah.
Yes, his thought pattern, and so he is anti-establishment.
And the way he's putting the rhymes together too. Like, I mean, like the rhyme schemes and that kind of thing are very that way.
Yeah, he's pretty dope. He doesn't get, he's one of those guys that if he doesn't make your top 50 list, a lot of people will be mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't make your top 50 list. But he's also one of those guys that you could make arguments for other guys because of their lyrical capabilities.
Right.
Putting him ahead. So he gets caught in that in that funny place. But content is always supposed to win out. Content and catalog.
It's definitely not as lyrically dense, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not again, that's not what this is. It's not what it's designed to be. It was not, does not seem like it was his intent either.
Yeah. So on the on Hip Hop Talks, AG made this great analogy about being talented and being gifted.
Right.
So
I love that.
So Guru is talented, but he's not gifted. So he says a lot of the things that a KRS-One or a Nas says, but they're gifted.
Yeah. Or pop,
so
like that kind of thing.
So you pay more attention probably to the positivity coming from a Nas or KRS-One. So it's not like Guru doesn't have the same content capability. Even the last record on JAZZMATAZZ is a story. He's got
Yeah,
storytelling
that
ability.
was one of my notes too, actually. We'll come to that in a minute, but like
Okay.
that felt like a Slick Rick kind of story. Like it was very much in that kind of
Yeah. So he's got the skills, but he's talented, and what he does, the gifted do. You know.
Yeah.
So that's some of the thing with him getting lost in the shuffle and his material getting lost in the shuffle, because he is literally, his rhetoric, his message is the same as a Chuck D, a KRS-One, a Nas, a Rakim, a Big Daddy Kane. Listen to the guys I just named.
Yeah, those are the icons, right?
Right. And so because his rhetoric is the same of those guys, well, he's not going to get the same recognition as those guys, because those guys are gifted.
And talented, both. Like,
Yeah,
they have
both.
both things.
Like,
Yeah.
how about this? Here's the thing about AG's analogy. Oh, we already know that you're talented if I'm saying that you're gifted. Saying you're talented means I like you and you're dope. It means you're not gifted, though. It's like I said, it means you're gonna make some all-star teams, but you might not make the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah. And Guru's probably on the borderline of that as much as anybody would be.
Okay,
I want to hear your notes. You always have great notes, so tell me.
Those were we've already talked about a lot of it already.
That usually happens too.
Yeah. And what more can I say when he says Guru played the beat? He's talking about him, right? That's making sure that that's right. That was one of those connections that I made.
No.
What
you talking about Jay?
Yeah.
No, that's a different Guru. That's the engineer, young Guru.
Okay, it didn't feel like it was the same person, really, but like I'm making sure I'm trying to make these connections across the
Young
thing.
Guru was the engineer in Baseline Studios, I believe, when Jay started making the blueprint, and he just kind of kept Guru after that as his personal engineer.
Yeah, it did not feel stylistically very similar, like, but I wanted to make sure that I was talking about the same thing too. Like this, and that's part of, for those of you who haven't seen this show before, that's part of what we're doing here is like you're helping me clarify these connections and non-connections and making sure that my history is correct.
That's
right?
young Guru, the engineer. But the thing why I was kind of confused, even with what you were saying, oh no, this Guru, oh no, he can make the beat and engineer it. Yeah.
He seems like he would have that skill for sure.
Actually, that kind of makes him gifted, though. Now that I think about that.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily make on the mic gifted, right? It's a different kind of.
That's different type of gifted.
Right.
He's multi-talented. That's what he is.
Yeah. The fancy educated word for that's a polymath, like a person who's good at lots of different things.
He would be that.
like the Da Vinci's of the world, right? That's the.
Yeah. I mean, he's a genius, but yes.
Yes.
You're saying.
One of the things that jumped out at me about this album is like I can always connect it back to your interview you did with the Glove and them talking about getting the bass into the studio. The bass playing on lots of hip hop records is very clearly done on a machine, like a keyboard or whatever, right? Like, and this very clearly on this album is a guy. It sounds like a stand-up bass, like a real bass on a lot of it. But I love the bass playing and the bass playing. I mean, obviously, bass and drums is the foundation of a lot of hip hop stuff. But like, you don't hear, or I don't know that I hear a ton that sounds like bass. Like, does that make sense? Like somebody's playing like the actual.
Right. No. I hear you. But I mean, but also too, I mean, so back to Glove story though, but that's part of why Deep Cover hit hard the way very few records had before.
Right.
Though. You know, like, to be honest with you, I'm trying to think of a record before Deep Cover that has like a better like riff for a come in, and I can't think of one either.
And that's one of the reasons this album, the JAZZMATAZZ album, caught my ear, or one of the ways it caught my ear too. I mean, I love jazz music, but like you hear that and you're like, oh, okay, like, and and that's some of that's how my I don't want to say white people ear is rock and roll music ear is conditioned to like listen to live
I,
instrumentation, but
I
like
think
it,
I think some of that. I think some of that is genetics too, because I'll tell you what, my mother, when I was growing up, had a super diverse palette, like George
yeah,
Michael, Lisa Stansfield,
yeah,
Celine Dion, like all that
right,
stuff. And what you find is that, well, then I start hearing stories about my grandfather and the stuff he listened to, and then I start hearing stories about how some of our parents used to, or my great grandparents used to be blues musicians, and
yeah,
you start hearing like all this stuff, and you're like, oh no, that might just be like how your ear works. Because I've always had an affinity for jazz, and I
yeah,
had no reason why. Like one of the first CDs I bought was a Charlie Parker Vervier CD.
hmm
You know, so some of that I do think is like, like you
you're
are,
tuned into what you like listening to, like
and you are a musician
yeah.
also too, sir. So it would
So
make sense.
so I hear, and we've had this conversation on the show before, but like the reason that the Roots caught my ear to start with is because it was a live band, right? And so there are things that you do as live bands um that you don't do on Pro Tools or whatever, right? Like this,
Yes,
it just doesn't, and that's not a disrespect to the Pro Tools necessarily. Like, that's just like but it sounds different. It sounds different, and
you, you,
it has
you,
a different
it's
sound quality to me,
you
anyway.
just get the color. You just get it's you know the Pro Tools, the 16 bars. They're just a box, and
Yeah,
when you're playing live, you just don't exist in that box.
right.
You exist in a rhythmic format, and but it's a space continuum and a meter and a measure. It's not a
Yeah,
box.
right. And
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 that's
you
the
and
difference.
people add flares into it, and
But
like
that's what I mean. But that's because it's a continuum and not a box. It's like
right.
it's got an infinity symbol on it when you're live. Like you can play this for 12 minutes if you want when you're live. You can't do that on no fucking. You better give me these 316s.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the point of the thing. But like, even if you don't know it's happening, um, there's so much music, and not just in hip hop world, but like in pop music and rock and roll music, people are using loops, right? Um, to as the background, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's no matter how good a musician you are, there's going to be little if you're playing it live all the way through. I saw an interview, this is ADD moment, sorry, that with what the guy who played bass on Thriller, and and the guy asked him like, "Are did you like play this once and then loop it, or are you actually like sitting there and playing it for all 8 minutes or whatever it is?" And he's like, "No, I sat there and played it over and over and over again for 8 minutes." And there's something, even if you like, I can't like put on the record and point to the fractions of second difference in the different parts of the song, but there are, and my ear picks everybody's ear picks up on them, even if you can't point to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
So
so it
some of
makes it
what
feel more human.
Yes, but some of what you're describing too is why some people traditionally didn't respect hip hop at first. Because
Right.
here is the thing: the audio version of hip hop, not the actual cultural version of it, but the
Right.
audio version of hip hop. Well, its existence is based on somebody taking a record,
Mhm.
hearing a part of their favorite record that they like, and looping that part of the record back, and then looping it again to the point where it actually makes another sound and
Right.
another groove and another audible tune to base off of. It's the loop. And
Yeah.
so, because hip hop audio wise is based on that, there were people early on. I think a lot of that has died down. It's like, well, that's not real music, and that's why,
Yeah.
because it doesn't
It's
speak
it's
to
a
what
different it's a
it's supposed to.
different thing.
Yeah.
Right. You're and just like we were talking about um with Jazzmatazz, like the intent is not the same, right? Like you're trying to make a different thing. And when you are trying to make a different thing, you use different tools a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't want to come off like I'm saying that there's someone's better or worse or whatever. It's just what I'm saying is, like, for my ear, that is a thing that caught my ear as I was listening to it, like the live instrumentation. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
It's where your buy-in takes flight.
Yeah. It's where I hear we talk about this all the time on this show, but that you're everybody, not just you and I, but everybody listens, especially when you're listening to new stuff. You're listening for things that you recognize from stuff that you love,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
styles that you recognize, and
So
those little pieces are the things that hook you in, and then you learn about all the other things.
okay.
One of the great parts about this show, honestly, is that it has taught me more than anything else, has taught me what to listen for, right?
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto. Yeah, that feeling's mutual. So here's the thing, even with my buy-in, so everybody's buy-in is different.
Mhm.
My buy-in for this was actually, I didn't know about volume 1 until volume 2.
Oh, really?
Yes, because that's back when I swore by and went by Rap City's top 10.
Right.
This song preview, they would do a selection of a record that they thought might end up in the countdown. That was the first time I heard Guru solo, and it was with Shaka Khan, Watch What You Say to Me, which was the lead single off volume 2. And I can remember the next week I saw it again because it ended up being number 9 on Rap City's top 10.
Right.
And that's when my buy-in came, and I was like, man, I need to check this project out. And I went and bought it. And that's when I found out that there was a volume 1, because I was like, hold on. I was
Wait,
like,
this
why
is volume
are you
2.
calling
Hold
it
on.
JAZZMATAZZ volume 2? Correct. So my buy-in to volume 1 was actually and my buy-in was actually more the fact that he got Shaka Khan to do a record with him than even him. I was like, he got Shaka Khan to do a record? I was like, Shaka Khan don't do records with rappers. She do
No.
records with Prince.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like she on that level. So
yeah, that was one of my major buy-ins to listen to this record, is when I looked down the list of all the people, because I think he's got listed on the cover too.
Oh, he
of it.
did, because he knew that was the track.
And I was like, oh, these are not just like rando people. These are like serious heavy hitter musicians that are famous, independent of hip hop sphere. They're like, they have their own solo albums that are like legendary.
He's not a rapper trying to do a jazz rap fusion album.
Right.
He went and got jazz musicians to handle the jazz sides of the jazz rap fusion.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the feel would be different if somebody found jazz records and looped them, right? Like it's a different.
Well, that's what
different
the
thing.
low end theory is. It's just done
Right.
extremely well. But the hip hop ear, but that's what I'm saying. But the low end theory, by all accounts, I mean, it's an easy top 20 rap album. Most people will tell you top 10. Some people think it's the greatest rap album of all time.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. So, but it's like, that's what jazz loop in a hip hop form sounds like at its zenith. This is more of a fusion.
It had the feeling the album does. JAZZMATAZZ album feels to me like I have these bars, play something, and we'll see what comes out. I mean, I'm sure he had more direction for them than that, but like it felt like there was more freedom for the musicians to experiment with.
I mean, I think that was
bars.
I think I always tell people, I love to talk, but I always know when to listen. And the time to listen is when you don't know something. Mm-hmm. And so I think what you hear musically on this album is that although Guru is the front man, he is not trying to tell jazz musicians how to play jazz.
Because they know better than him. They know better than everybody.
Because they know better than he does, even what it is that he's calling them in to do. Mm-hmm. When you call somebody in to do a job, you should let them do the job.
Amen.
And so on this project, it feels experimental and fusion driven because well, that was the goal.
Yeah.
And he let them do their job. When you do that, it's probably not going to sound as cohesive, because one of the marks that I would give this record negatively is that the cohesiveness of it isn't there. Well, that's going to be hard to do when you're doing one of what might be rap's first real jazz hip hop fusion album.
Okay.
Well, there's going to be some bumps and bruises that come with that stylistically, performatively, sequencing, structure wise, sound quality, engineering wise. You got different artists playing different instruments on different levels,
songs. Yeah.
on different songs. Yeah, all of those things. And you got them doing it in a hip hop studio for the most part.
Right.
I'm not sure if D&D, like, we might need to do a show on D&D. I'm not sure what the acoustics are like in terms of if they're like actual, I mean, this, I've been in tons of studios where it's like, that's the acoustic studio.
Right.
And that's the recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
The board is in the middle to handle both sides.
There's different rooms. Sure.
Yeah. So when I was at Paisley Park, yeah, everything. Like, you can record right here, in there, right there, do a handstand in a corner.
Yeah.
Studio, but different spots and points. So, like, these are things to factor into this being done for the first time. And that's what I mean about Guru being forward thinking for even trying something like this, because the thing to do in that era was to do what a Q-Tip, a Pete Rock, a Large Professor, a Dr. Dre was doing, which was taking the sample from your favorite record and looping it and making it yours. He actually took it a step further, and so you're going to get jazz musicians probably riffing on a rap record. Guess what jazz musicians tend to do when they play?
They're riffing, on every record. Yeah.
So you're kind of he got what he paid for, and he let him do it. So, I mean, I don't think he was trying to make a classic rap album. I think he was trying to make an album that brought two musical cultures started by the same culture together.
I was just about to say, like, I mean, all American music is black music originally, but like it's, but yeah, these are the two most people would say are the primary, or when you think of black music in America, is jazz and hip hop, but not that the others aren't too, but like, or maybe blues.
These are the ones that are specifically identified with black culture. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like when a white guy is a jazz musician, it's like he's a jazz musician.
He better be really, 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 really.
So it's very much hip hop in that regard.
Yeah.
I think when Eminem's coming out, it's like, but can he rap?
He can, but
same thing with jazz musicians. It's like when you see a white jazz musician, when you get what's the name, the Connick,
Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah, when you get it, even when you get a guy like that, it's like, oh, can he really sing and play? It's like, oh, he really can sing and play. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, he can play for real. Yeah, he's not a hack for sure.
Yeah,
like, he's also pulling from like the Sinatra jazz too. Like he's pulling from that world too. But he can play for real. Like,
no, he can play for real. But you ask those questions about white jazz musicians. So,
he's not Thelonious Monk or whatever, right? Like, it's not the same.
Very few people are that.
Definitely not. That was one of the first jazz albums I bought, was Thelonious Monk. I mean, that's a man right there.
I mean, he's arguably the best piano player ever.
Yeah, it's just incredible stuff. I used to play that like when they were writing journals and stuff like that. I'd play music in the background. That was one of the albums I would play. So
he's extremely gifted.
Yeah. This album was great too. The JAZZMATAZZ album, man. Like it's not a overstatement to say. I mean, Sean said on Hip Hop Talks the other day that when you did the game's 20th anniversary for documentary, that he would not necessarily say, I'm paraphrasing this badly, Sean. If I fuck it up, I'm sorry. But like some version of this may not be one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, but it's one of my favorite ones, right? And this, I would honestly say that about this JAZZMATAZZ album. It's not I know enough about hip hop now. I did not then, but like I know enough from watching y'all and talking to y'all about it. I know enough to know that it's not one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. Like
Right.
I understand that, but it's one of my favorites.
But you like
it's
it.
one
Yeah,
that
but it's
I'm going to put back on.
Yeah.
After the show,
Yeah.
like so much of the stuff that not so much of the stuff, some of the stuff we do for this show, I listen to and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then I don't really pull it back out or whatever. But this is one that I'm going to pull back out.
So to go back to an artist that we were just talking about on Hip Hop Talks to kind of sew that up. Oh, The Becoming by Beanie Siegel. I know that it's not one of the greatest rap albums of all time, but I love that album.
Yeah,
I still
exactly.
go back and listen to that project. And I know objectively it's never going to make, it's probably not even going to make a top 100 rap albums of all time list. And that's not a knock to the album. That's more about the greatness of hip hop. But I love that record.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you have albums like that where it's like, oh no, I love that album. I know that it's not a classic. I still love that album.
Right.
You know, and it's okay.
And I love this both. I mean, I love just the instrumentation and the bars and all, like in the bass playing and all that stuff. It's a great thing that I can like put on and listen to and not have to pay close attention to and just have it be a vibe in the background. But also you can like listen to it closely and be like, oh, he's laying some stuff down.
So I think that's the thing that our adult ears like about this project that maybe our younger ears wouldn't have liked, is that this album works well in various mediums, as in, well, while you're making breakfast for your kids in the morning, you can play this record. But while you're riding in the car taking them to school, you can play this record. But while you're sitting down grading papers, you can play this record. But when you're just chilling out on a little bit of free time that you have,
you're actually paying attention to what he's saying. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and you can still play this record. And I think that it's hard to appreciate a record like that when you're 14, 15, which we were when this came out.
Yeah.
And even in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you know,
I wouldn't have appreciated it the same way then.
It's easier for the space that we're at as grown men to listen to this record and be like, man, this shit is dope. I really like this.
This is great.
I could listen to this. Yeah, that's what but also too, and this happens in all genres of music. This is one of those albums, and part of why I wanted you to listen to it, and I want to do volume 1 and volume 2. It's like, well, some albums get better over time and deserve to be revisited and re-rated as such.
Agreed.
And this would definitely be one of those, because this is not a 3-star album. It is a 4 out of 5.
No.
It is a 4 out of 5. Just off the musicianship that you're hearing and the melodies that you're getting alone, it's a 4. Like Guru's bars on top of it. The only thing that I think it is missing is better engineering and sequencing. And I would, depending on how you feel about it, you could take a couple of these tracks off, in my opinion, if we're just like critiquing. But that would be it. I would take off a couple of the records. I would reorder some of the sequencing, get a cleaner cut, and listen.
That's a pretty high bar, though, right? Like if that's all that has to be done to it, then that's not a lot.
That's what I mean. That's when you got a 4 on your hands. You got a good 4, maybe a little bit more. So definitely,
it's a great album, and it's one that,
and
yeah.
And hip hop is in a better place to receive something like this again. Like, imagine if this. Think about this. Like, you know, remember when do you remember that jazz record that had like, it was Biggie rhyming over all the jazz loops? You've never heard that? Oh man, that was
not that I'm pulling up to my brain right now.
But all I'm saying is that hip hop is in a place now where this album would be received totally differently, coming out in this more modern era where hip hop has so many subgenres. You know?
Yeah.
Quite frankly, so. Yep.
Great record. This is a fun show. Thank you for recommending it. Like this is, it's one of the joys of the show and this friendship too, is to have somebody that knows you well enough to be like, oh, he's gonna like this.
Yeah,
like that's good.
And also too, this still lets me flex my hip hop muscle, because this is what I mean, where I'm different than these other dudes who talk about their hip hop heads. Who the hell is running around talking about Guru and JAZZMATAZZ except for me? That's what I'm saying. Like I hear like how other dudes talk, but it's like to be like encompassed in this culture. It's like, oh no, I'm familiar with all aspects and all these albums. Like I know this album. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I didn't just pull this from nowhere and be like, hey Andrew, I think we should do this. It's like, oh no, I got familiar. That's why I'm telling you the story.
It's the same thing we did with the Gray album, honestly. I mean,
I found out about Volume 1 in 1995 via Volume 2. So it's like I've known about it and listened to it for a long time. Like I
started listening to the Gray album right after he made it. That's.
I found out about the Gray album through a hip hop website that I used to follow.
Yeah, I downloaded it off Napster. Like I mean, like it's
hiphopsite.com.
Yeah.
Hiphopsite.com. Yep.
So yeah, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Y'all, thanks for hanging out.
Yep. Everybody, make sure you click, like, subscribe, share. We're over 2,000 subscribers.
Oh yeah.
So we're striving for 3 now. We're back.
Yeah.
We're back at it. We're getting this year started off to a good foot. We've got a couple shows done. I think this might be good slot time for us, at least every couple of weeks, to maybe be able to work this out. But yeah, let's get us to 3,000 subs this year, sir.
Amen, brother. All right.
First 6 months, maybe we can do it.
We're at like 2,300 something now, so it's doable.
Yeah, it's doable. Oh, we're at 2,300. You said?
Yeah, it's 2,350 something. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're gonna be at 3K before the summer.
Yeah.
3K before the summer.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate all of y'all.
Yeah. Peace out.
All right.